Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Next Gen Planners podcast. My name is Dan, and I'm the head of community experience here at Next Gen Planners. And this morning when we're recording this, I've lost all sense of time. It's near Christmas. I'm joined by Damien Lardoux and Louisiana Salge from EQ Investors. How are you doing today, guys? You can both answer at once, or you can both take it in turns if you want.
Good, thank you.
Really good.
Good stuff. And we sometimes have double acts on the podcast, but whenever we do, we have to be extra vigilant to make sure that you guys don't step over yourselves. But I'm sure we'll work it out perfectly fine, won't we? And I've split the questions up between you. But I will say that if you want to come in on the other person's question, do just come in and put your answers in as well. It's absolutely fine. So for anyone who doesn't know Damien then, so he's the head of impact investing at EQ Investors. And I'm very, very happy that he's here with us today. I feel very privileged to have him on the show today. So Damien, can you just tell us very, very briefly what it is that you do at EQ Investors, please?
Sure. Thank you very much, Dan. I mean, I should say that it is a privilege for us, for Louisiana and I, to get the chance to speak with you and to the Next Gen community. So as you said, I work for EQ Investors, and we are, a sustainable discretionary fund manager. And I've been with EQ for 10 years in March next year, actually, so coming very soon. And I should say we're recording that in December. So in just a couple of a month maybe when this is going to be released. And since I've been with EQ, really the idea was to allow financial advisors and their clients to invest sustainably. So what I do on a day-to-day basis is manage a number of sustainable portfolios, as well as enthusiastically speak with financial advisors about how they can integrate sustainable investing within their CIP.
Brilliant. That was very brief and just what we needed. That's fantastic. And for anyone who doesn't know Louisiana, of course, we're very, very privileged to have her on as well. And she's the senior sustainability specialist at EQ Investors. So Louisiana, can you just tell us what you do at EQ?
Yeah, sure. Sorry for the mouthful of a title there. Well, I joined EQ 3 years ago, straight out of a master's in sustainable business. And I actually worked on EQ's first impact report back then. And since then, I guess my role has kind of gradually grown and kind of evolved to me now overseeing how we adhere to our portfolio sustainability objectives. And what I mean by that is, day to day, I monitor our holdings, I engage with our fund managers to improve their best practices. I engage with underlying holdings in order for them to improve their sustainability credentials, and also, of course, do the reporting so that our clients know that we are actually delivering on what we say we are on the sustainability side.
Amazing. It's fascinating to hear what you guys do. We see your organization and we see the things that go on there, but it's really cool to hear it from people who actually do it as well. So very, very good. It's interesting as well, like Damien, you mentioned that you worked there for 10 years now, and it's cool to think that this kind of stuff has been, in conversations and going on for actually 10 years, because all of this kind of stuff sometimes feels like a very new thing if we go with the bandwagon approach that everyone seems to be calling it at the moment. But actually, it's been going on for all this time, and it's not a new thing at all. I think what we could clarify just at the start, and I like to do it on all these podcasts where we talk about sustainable investing, ethical investing, that kind of stuff, is to actually define what we mean when we say there's certain terms, because I'm sure you guys would agree that ESG gets used as a blanket term for sustainable investing, but in reality, ESG is just one part of responsible investing and sustainable investing, impact investing and stuff like that. Now, Damien, you are the head of impact investing at EQ Investors. So I really do hope that you know what impact investing means, and I'm sure you will. But can you just define to us what you mean when you say impact investing?
Sure. There are obviously very different ways of answering that question. So maybe I'll try in a different way, so maybe to bring it to life. The idea of impact investing is to invest in companies that are helping to tackle unmet needs. So what that means in a bit more kind of practical terms is investing in companies that are developing innovative solutions, primarily through their product and services, to tackle the many social and environmental challenges we face around climate change, around access to clean water, education, or healthcare. So that's really the idea, is to really be contributing to solutions. But what's really important as well with this idea of impact investing, I should say, it's investing. So it's also about generating strong returns. I really think actually, and we might come back to that in a few minutes, but we really think actually the two works quite well together. And actually, we think that with an impact lens, you can generate good returns and potentially even generate better returns. But what's also really important to understand about impact investing is that you need to be able to measure that impact. To claim that you're an impact investor, you need to tell your investors and explain to investors how that impact is being generated. And Louisiana mentioned impact reports, and we've done 4 impact reports today, annual impact reports to date. And this is really a key part of if you're an impact investing proposition, is to go in as much detail as possible on how the impact that is achieved through the companies you're supporting. And I'll just make maybe a last analogy, which I quite like doing, is that you talk about the different ways of investing sustainably. You mentioned about ESG, which are called kind of light green approach, which is investing in companies that are well run from an operational standpoint. Then there is usually sustainable investing, where it's a bit more ambitious. You actively invest in companies that are if you're better than their peers, or are also providing solutions. But it's not quite as impact investing, which is very much focusing primarily on the contributing solutions, which will mean more like the dark green. So for your client that are really enthusiastic about doing good, impact investing will suit them really well.
Brilliant. Now, you've defined it perfectly. I mean, I'm not the judge of perfectly defining responsible investing stuff, but I think, yeah, it's very easy to understand when you outline it like that, and when you do use those kind of analogies and things like that. So that's really, really useful. And we'll come to you, Louisiana, for a second, because I know from speaking to financial planners that one of the biggest struggles that they face is having conversations about this kind of stuff with their clients, about sustainable investing, responsible investing, and also kind of trying to align their clients' values to the stuff that they're investing in. So I'm always interested to hear from you guys on this kind of stuff, but do you have any tips for financial planners when they are talking to their clients about responsible investing, to try and get out those values and then trying to align them to the stuff that they invest in as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. And I think just generally, before I answer the tips, it's really important that advisors start talking to their clients about this if they haven't done so yet. The regulator has a big kind of interest in this. And as you know, kind of in order for us to meet our world goals of, for example, achieving net zero, everybody's money should be invested, if they want to, should be invested in order to drive that change. So I think advisors have a really key role to play there. In terms of how this works, I think what we do often in the very beginning of when we have a new client relationship with an advisor is to provide some educational background and some educational materials, because we actually think without them totally getting it and buying into it, it's quite hard for them to be able to recommend the client a proposition and to figure out what might suit their preferences, because there are, as you said, quite a lot of them. And then by knowing this background information, they can pass on that education to the client and they can make a better informed decision. I think this is the best way to do this. It's kind of a more bottom up. People might think, okay, can't be bothered with all of that work, but I do think that would ultimately be the best outcome for the client. Of course, there's also other ways. So I think generally 2 ways. One is the conversational route. So you can figure out whether a client might be interested in it by bringing up, for example, their personal passions. They might, drive an electric car, or they might be trying to reduce their plastic waste or something like this. And you can figure out that this might be something they're interested in, and that can then engage the conversation. Mm-hmm. And second of all, of course, some advisors would like to do a questionnaire or kind of attach a couple of questions to the fact find. And we do think that is a good way to kind of position it, because it forces you to bring it up. But if you'd like to do this, we do this quite often, we kind of double check those questions so that they're not leading the clients in one way or another. So yeah, we have fed back to some of these questionnaires just to make sure that they're appropriate and actually do help the clients to understand their preferences. So these are where we're at the moment.
That's really good. I love the idea of a questionnaire. I guess the thing about, you mentioned there about leading questions is we're almost at a stage where sometimes we need to be leading with this kind of stuff, because they genuinely sometimes they don't think about it on a daily basis. But if you ask them, do you care about the planet, or do you care about where your money goes, and do you want to make a lasting impact on the on the planet, they'll probably say yes, but I just didn't think about it. So it's an interesting balance to strike, because sometimes you, like you said, you have to be a bit leading with this kind of stuff. But I do like the idea of questionnaires. Thanks, Louisiana. That's really good. So Damien, we'll come back to you. We're hopping around all over the place here, and we'll come back to impact investing for a second. And you mentioned before about ESG being the kind of light green. Impact investing is kind of, is it dark green that impact investing is thought of? Or
it's more darker green for sure, yeah.
Almost like a khaki green. But like that, people definitely see it as the extreme end, or the dark end, not the dark end, but the dark colored end of responsible investing. And because like you mentioned earlier, it focuses on more heavily on the impact side rather than fully on the financial return side, which is what the history of investing has always been. So for anyone who is a bit perhaps skeptical about impact investing and kind of giving up those, again, you mentioned before as well, you're not giving up returns because it's investing. So the aim is still to make a return, but it's just not going to be sacrificed by the amount of impact that you have. So for anyone who is skeptical about it, what evidence has there been shown, maybe in your reports or something like that, about the true impact that impact investing has on the world?
I guess if I may answer your question in two ways, because you're talking about the financial return, and then you're talking about the impact investors are actually making. So if you allow me to answer the two questions, in slightly different ways. So the first thing is about, you mentioned, this fear that some advisors could have that their clients may have to compromise on their financial returns. And obviously, it's a question that we get very often, slightly less now that we've built nearly a 10-year track record on the proposition. But I guess, the idea is that if you are reducing your investment universe by focusing on a subset of the index, which are companies providing solutions to many challenges we face, then as a result, then they should lead to that type of investments underperforming kind of index, because the index can invest in any type of companies. And we think that actually this is not true. And our 10-year track record in our proposition is actually showing that. What you need to think about is that within an index, what an impact investor is doing is investing in challenges, also in companies that are providing solutions to the challenges we face. And those challenges are big today and are growing in size. So an impact investor is very much benefiting from what we call mega trends. Think about, we're just out of COP26, and it's clear, if you just think about climate change, if we want to reach net zero by 2050, which is, by the way, a 50% carbon emission reduction every decade, we need to invest about $4 trillion a year. And we're barely doing $1 trillion a year at the moment in terms of investments. So think about the scale here. And we're just talking about this decarbonization theme. So if I'm a company and I developed a product or a service, you see, helping companies, individuals, households, organizations to reduce their carbon footprint, my market is big and my market is growing. Whereas, so that's really the attraction, is to invest in fast-growing sectors, but this is definitely not a fad, because those trends, if you want, are really kind of long-term trends. And then the other caveat, or the other kind of point I like people thinking about, is that in an index, do you always want to invest in all type of companies or all type of sectors? Are there some sectors that seems to be really challenged by actually that transition, systemic transition or revolution, actually, we talk about. And if you think about the tobacco sectors, now they are in negative growth. In terms of revenue growth, these are declining now. Think about the fossil fuel industry. They've got as over 50% of the reserves are going to be stranded assets if we want to meet the Paris Agreement. So all these type of companies, to really invest in those, if you take a medium to long term kind of investment approach. So for us, Louisiana and I, this is where we invest our pension. And we sleep better at night knowing that the company we're investing are part of the future rather than, I guess, part of the past. Or only part of the past. So that was, I don't know, does that answer your first question around concerns advisors could have around returns? And I think, for those that want to have a look at our impact proposition, it's called a positive impact portfolios. And we've got just over 9-year track record going into 10-year. And it's interesting to see that every single year, proposition has actually outperformed its peer group without, I guess, any sustainable investment nets. So then your next question, it's got quite a long-winded answer, sorry. But your next question is around what type of impact are we making? So this is a very good question and is not an easy one to answer briefly, unfortunately. So the first one is that, which is relatively hard to measure, is that you're signaling to the market that as an investor, you care about what the company's intentionality, why are the companies, I guess, operating in today's world? What are they contributing to? Yeah. And you're signaling to the companies that sustainability is really important, and the fact that those companies should have products and services providing solutions, to signaling into the market. And I really like an analogy that one of the fund managers we work with said that if you let's say go to a football stadium and you are in a stadium on your own, there isn't any other fans around you, and by yourself, you're not going to really make a massive difference to the team that you're supporting. But if there's thousands of you in the stadium, we are really shouting or loudly their love for the footballers on the pitch, then they're going to really feel that and say, this is, I feel really good about it, and think that they are doing the right thing. So I guess that's the same analogy you could make for in the system of work, or sorry, in the finance world, is that we're signaling to the market participants that this is really important. So that's one element. Second element is around financing. So as we allocate more and more money to these companies, either because they're doing through an IPO, so listing in the financial market, or because they're coming to the fixed income market and want to raise money to expand their businesses, then we're helping those businesses, I guess, to develop and also giving them access to capital. As there are more of us supporting those companies, we're bringing down the cost of capital. So basically making it cheaper for them to finance their future, I guess, expansion projects. And I guess that's these two elements are, and I think quite important. There's the financing element, and then there is the signaling element, and the last element, last but not least, is the engagement. And that's a work that Louisiana do every day. So it does every day. Is that there isn't any perfect company, actually, and there isn't any perfect fund manager, I should say, either, or investment manager. So really what our role is to engage with fund managers, fund managers, and really make them think about what impact investing is and how impact investing is evolving, and then making sure that the company themselves, that we are investing in through the fund managers, are really, I guess, improving the practices, improving the impact they're making to the world, reporting the data so that we can really assess how much of an impact they're making to the world, and really pushing them to increase that kind of net impact. So that's these three elements, the signaling, the financing, and the kind of engagement for improvement, I would say, are the three ways to measure the impact you're making.
Wow. That's very comprehensive. I could literally pick apart every single part of that and ask you further questions about it, but we were a bit struck for time. But yeah, that was really, really good. And you mentioned COP26 in there. I mean, we could talk again for ages about the impact of COP26 and whether it actually was one. But I think we'll save that for another day for now. But thank you, Damien. That was really, really good. So Louisiana, let's come back to you. Let Damien have a drink and settle after that last answer. If there is anyone in the audience who works at a financial planning firm and they're looking to really start to actually be able to offer this to their clients, and they're really starting to get serious about it, that starts with a kind of proposal, or we call them CIPs here in the financial planning world. And how would you recommend they start to build their sustainable proposal if they're literally starting from page 1 today?
Yeah, great question. So first of all, I think you should expect most of the usual qualities that you'd look for in a kind of traditional discretionary fund manager. There's no need to compromise on any of that, which includes, everything from cost to reporting to, platform access and servicing. All of that you should expect. So this is a starting point. So what you then need to focus on is the additional things that you need to extend your due diligence on, almost beyond the qualities that you already look for. And I think there's a couple of things. So first of all, I think Damien mentioned earlier, there's a couple of different ways in which you can invest sustainably. So what the first thing you need to do is to figure out what the objectives are of the potential DFM. There's different approaches they can take, from light green to dark green, to use that same analogy. And what is really important is that you actually know what is included, what is excluded. Is this clear to you? And do you have assurance within their policies, within their strategy, within their documents that this is what your clients will get? Because only this way you can actually assess client suitability in the end, right? So once that's done, I think it's worth discussing whether there's more than one you might want to put on your CIP, because as we've discussed, there's different client preferences, which might translate into different needs in terms of the proposition. So you might want to have an ESG one, you might want to have an impact one, or you might want to merge the two in the end, right? So that's something that you should look out for. And then once you've established the objectives of the investment manager, you need to look for whether they are committed to reporting and transparency about whether they're achieving those. So I think if you're buying, or if you're doing due diligence on a proposition that I guess promises a dual mandate and promises to create sustainable outcomes as well as financial outcomes, you need to expect reporting in order to not just tell your client, eventually this is the financial outcomes that you've achieved over the last year, but also the sustainability ones. So this is another thing you should look out for. And transparency is really important there. Then next thing I would definitely look for is kind of the expertise of the team. Everybody's now saying they've been doing sustainable investment for years, but not everybody has. And I think it does come with a different type of skill set. So, I mean, financial analysis and sustainability analysis just isn't necessarily the same, and not everybody can do it. So I think looking for expertise in the team that you're potentially recommending is important, and how long they've been doing this. I'm not saying, longevity is everything and track record is everything, but it does come with some certain kind of knowledge of the sector. And then also the dedication of the company to evolve. So since I joined, which was not even that long ago, like 3 years, the space has developed so rapidly, with best practice popping up here, there, everywhere, frameworks to be on top of, and you need a company that will stay on top of this evolution. So I guess if you were to look out for something specific, it's kind of the dedication of the overall company to the sustainable investment space. So what you can think about is, for example, is the company a B Corp? EQ is a benefit corporation, and we can go into what that means later. But that's one thing. And then just kind of last but not least, I want to talk about kind of the dedication that the service that you get from the investment manager beyond the simple investment strategy. So if you start to talk to your clients about this, what you'll notice is that there's tricky questions that they'll come up, right? Like they might have a specific view on a specific sustainability issue. They might have a very strong view about wanting to support a sustainability issue, and you might not be the best placed person to answer this, because that's not necessarily your job. So what you should look for when you're kind of evaluating DFM providers is there service and support for pitching? Can they help you talk to your clients and kind of give them the assurance that they want? So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Definitely does. That was really, really good. I think that the most difficult part for advisors is starts at the start. And it starts with the kind of segmentation of their clients. So figuring out, trying to map clients' values with the type of investing that they should be investing in, and trying to get their heads around that. So like you said before about having different things in your CIP. So one ESG, one impact, for instance, which kind of clients go into each, and having a framework for those and having some kind of way of measuring which one. I think also is, well, I don't think this is a problem for them, but I love the idea of this kind of new way of reporting, that it's almost like a bit like Christmas Day, that you get on the day of when you find out how your investment has done in the past year or 5 years or whatever it is that you look at, alongside the financial returns, which hopefully they will be positive. You also get the idea of what you've actually done to the world as well. Like, I mean, is that something that, I mean, quickly, Louise, is that something that those kind of reports can actually report on?
Yeah, of course. So we do this multiple ways. I think, again, it's really important that it's not just once a year, but it's kind of on an ongoing basis. So all of our fact sheets have alignment to the UN goals, have the carbon footprint. And then once a year, we do a really huge deep dive, which kind of results in what we call our impact calculator. So you can basically plug in your investment amount, you can plug in your risk profile, and it shows you the associated positive impact with your client specific investment in that year. So yeah, and that sits kind of, we dual brand that, so it can sit neatly within I don't know how, an annual update, let's say, report. So you get your nice financial statement. This is how much money you've made in the past year, hopefully. And also how much, how much CO2 you've saved, and how much, hours of education you've provided, and how many patients you've treated. Amazing. So I think you said it's, you can have your cake and eat it. I think that's kind of what we do.
It is literally, I mean, you literally describing Christmas Day, just loads of good things have come in at once. It's like, it's just amazing. That is fascinating. Okay, so Damien, I'm going to ask you a big question now. And it leads on to the next question, which I'm going to ask Louisiana as well, but I'll ask you this question first. So I'm just going to come out straight out with it. What do you think the future of sustainable investing holds for financial planners?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and I wish I had a crystal ball to tell you this is exactly what's going to happen. I think it's clear that the momentum behind sustainability and sustainable investing is big, and I think we're not going to do any U-turn. If you just look at COP26, and you look at how year on year the pressure that governments, actually all stakeholders are putting on trying to push everyone to act, and really reduce the harm we make to the planet, is becoming stronger and stronger, that push. So there's no I guess U-turn. So what does the future hold? I think if I was maybe slightly pushy, maybe for some of your listeners, is I think sustainable investing is going to become probably the norm, and then people will opt out if they don't want to be a kind of sustainable investor, and then go into other type of investments. But the thing is, though, is that the way sustainable investing is defined at the moment is quite inclusive. So I think for all DFMs or discretionary fund managers, they most of them are already starting to embed environmental, social, and governance criteria in the process, by which I mean that they tag that kind of non-financial information to the process because they know it can have a meaningful impact on share price performance. What we think is that sustainable investing is not only about minimizing your downside risk and avoiding being caught into you remember the Macondo spill from BP, or the Volkswagen Dieselgate in Germany, or the Boohoo human labor scandal more recently, and then about avoiding this type of controversies and not investing in those companies. But for us also, I guess the future holds is probably more and more investors realizing, I guess, the opportunities that those megatrends offer, and we probably going to see more and more investors starting to invest in what used to be seen as niche, which is very much now becoming mainstream. So I think that it would, for us, in the relatively near future, we would expect most investors to have a sustainable investment mandate, whereas today is still a minority.
Yeah. Brilliant. That actually leads perfectly on to the next question, because you've kind of stolen the limelight a little bit there, Damien.
Yeah.
There's the next question I was going to ask Louisiana is about this kind of sustainable investing becoming the default, or Damien said the norm, in years to come. And you could look at it a few ways. Firstly, I guess the trend in society is more people become concerned with this, with COP26 and stuff like that. And people are actually really starting to care about this kind of stuff. And I don't think that's a generational thing either. I think it's, some people try to say that the young generations care more. I don't actually think they do. The more people I speak to, I think it's really mixed between the bags. But then the second half of that is also the idea that, companies and things like that are just becoming more sustainable. They're becoming better. There's very, very few companies out there nowadays who are actually doing terrible things. Whereas there's quite a lot of good companies. Yeah, you probably disagree with that, but there's a lot of companies who are doing good things, like with BCOPs and things like that. So Louisiana, just your perspective on what Damien was talking about there. Do you think that it will become the default in years to come?
Yeah, I think so. As Damien said, it already is. So it's quite interesting if you think about kind of segregating what currently is traditional investing. I would actually say that it already includes ESG investing in that, right? So it's already happened in some way. I agree with Damien. It's going to move more towards trying to create positive change using the financial sector and everybody doing that. So I totally support that one. I think one key thing is that investors shouldn't kind of lean back and ride on the basis that, oh yeah, everybody's just going to become more sustainable, because even though everybody's messaging that they are, unfortunately, that's not always the truth. So our job as an investment manager is to say, there still is, even though this is a bit mega trend and it is becoming a competitive advantage and everybody is thinking about sustainability, some people are doing it more genuinely than others.
Yeah.
And I think our job here is to both pick out the ones that are doing it properly, or I guess creating a sustainable proposition that is picking those that are doing it properly and most ambitiously, but also very importantly, and we've not talked about engagement and stewardship too much today, but investors have a very, very key role in order to actually hold companies to account and push them in the right direction quicker than they would usually go on their own. So I think this is still, there still is differentiation between, I guess, different sustainable products, some that are just riding on the back of companies doing the right thing and kind of gradually moving, and some that are kind of a little bit, you could call it more activist maybe, that are really trying to push the dial and make their portfolios more sustainable through their actions. So still differentiation. Some is kind of on the back of general trends, and some is really trying to make a difference themselves. And that translates into, I guess, different sustainability preferences by clients and different ways they can get involved. So yeah, but for sure, everything's moving this way. There's no U-turn. For sure.
Brilliant. I think no, it's good. You're very strong on that point, and you're not kind of like on the fence about it. It's like it is big on in the future. And for anyone out there who's still calling it a bandwagon, I mean, that kind of gets rid of that whole thing, doesn't it? So we haven't actually spoken about, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here, guys, because you didn't know this question was coming, but we mentioned COP26 a few times, and I just kind of want to ask the horrible interviewer question that people do ask. But what do you think? We'll start with you, Damien, just because Louisiana went last. What do you think the impact of COP26 has been, and was it a success in your eyes?
That's a great question. So you can always see the glass half full or half empty. I'm optimistic in nature, so I'm going to give you the glass half full. And I think what is there's a few interesting things to think about is that we've been more ambitious than the previous COPs, and particularly the COP 15, where there's some very strong pledges that have been signed by countries, and some countries have started acting upon pledges that actually were put in place a few years back. So the direction is clear, and everyone agrees that, for example, we before going into COP, we didn't have India committing to a net zero target. So now they have done. So even if, their horizon is probably a bit further than we would have liked. Anyway, the direction is there. China also has one, probably a bit further than we would like. But I think the direction is clear that everyone is acknowledging the fact that human-led emissions are having an impact on climate, and as a result, then we need to change the way we live and change our economies operate so that we reduce and come to kind of a carbon neutral type of economy. So I think so the momentum is there. What was great as well is to see as well, which we didn't touch on early on, but I think it's an important point for us as and when clients think about the investments, is that there was this 130 trillion commitment from the financial sector saying that they want to finance the transition. I mean, we can debate on that amount, how true that is, but I think the point is not there. The point is we as a financial sector, we want to be part of the change, and we want to help finance that transition. So these were, I think, really, I would say, positive, outcomes of COP26, and that's, I guess, what I want to keep from that. Louisiana and I, we went to Glasgow, and really, when you hear scientists speaking, the science is there. You think about renewable energy. This is the cheapest source of energy for over 60% of the population globally. So we're coming to a tipping point around energy storage. Electric vehicles, the cost of batteries are coming down very strongly as well. There's the technologies that are there. We're thinking about as well the importance of nature and how nature can be a solution. So I think we now know what we need to be done. I guess now it's about doing it. So I'm just going to stop there and let Louisiana bring more meat to the bone, as I like saying.
It's good. I think it's almost like the signaling thing that you said before about impact investing. It's signaling to the world that we mean business, and that we're actually talking about this, and it actually is important. Louisiana, have you got anything to add to
that? I think just to back that up in terms of, like, there was lots of commitments. We really like that. We think it's the general positive direction. I think now is about kind of holding people to their commitments. And on that front, I guess there's kind of the global policy space, right? So companies need to hold each other to account. The UN has a role to play on that. But then in the investment space, I think one key thing, which is, I guess, a message that we came to Glasgow with as well, is that, your CEO right now might be quite passionate about it. But what happens if, they step down, they change company, and somebody else comes up that doesn't really care? Who's being accountable for these commitments? No one at this point, right? And that's quite worrying, especially because I think the tenure of a CEO kind of is like 3 to 4 or 5 years or something. It's not enough. So I think one of the key messages that I would say is we need to change the way business is doing business, away from kind of shareholder primacy to include a purpose to benefit all stakeholders, which is a message that kind of B Corp incorporates in some ways. And without that, your board is not accountable for these targets at all. So I think in the public sector, so kind of listed businesses, we as shareholders can do some bits. We can hold them to account in some ways by, for example, preventing, I don't know, the CEO re-election or something like that. But in general, I think businesses can do something themselves to hold themselves accountable, to make kind of their boards, for example, that an objective of their boards. So yeah, there's a governance aspect to this, which I think we still need to work out. That's my little bit.
No, that's nice. And I'm going to get my word, because I have to say this word every podcast because I love the word, but it's a nice segue into the next question, which I was going to ask Damien, because you guys at EQ Investors are actually a B Corp. And as Louisiana mentioned there, it's a positive thing. So for anyone in the audience who doesn't know what a B Corp is, can you just explain it a little bit briefly for us, and also the benefits that it provides you guys at EQ Investors as well?
Sure. So, I mean, as Louisiana said, the B stands for benefit. So really the idea is really, to put all stakeholders at the heart of what you do, and making sure actually that you make the highest possible positive impact on all your stakeholders. And when we talk about stakeholders, obviously not only your employees and your clients, but also maybe the local community around you, your supply chain, everyone that you work with or you can have an impact on, that you need to take into account and really try to improve the outcome for those stakeholders. What's interesting about B Corp is actually was born in the US and came to the UK in 2015. And as you said, EQ Investors was one of the founding member of B Corp in the UK. And really the idea here is that, and kind of what Louisiana said, I think is an important point, is that you start looking at actually your articles of association, and you look at whether those articles of association are putting sustainability and all stakeholders at the heart of the company. And that's, I think, quite an interesting one, is that you start with the article of association. Why are you here for? Okay, and once you clarify that, well, I think you're signaling to your employees, your shareholders, I guess all your stakeholders, that they're quite important for you. But not only, obviously, the issue at the moment is primarily about the shareholders, then the employees, then the clients, and the community. They're really kind of at the bottom of the list. If you have a little bit of time, you see that. So that's, I think, everyone on the kind of the same level. And what's interesting about B Corporation is that, I should say, it's a non-for-profit organization, which is everyone can become a B Corp, but you need to go through an assessment, kind of, if you want an audit. And 80% of the companies that are going through this audit actually fail, don't meet the minimum standards. So the standards are quite high, if you want, for any company to become a B Corp. And also for any company to become a B Corp is a journey. And I think that's it's quite interesting, is that people that start on that journey, they're willing to signal to the world how important sustainability is for them. And as a result, then they're probably going to make changes to the way they operate, to maybe policies they have in place for their staff and so on, so that they can also become a B Corp. So what I really like is not only about what you do today, but actually what you need to do to actually become a B Corp. But then also what's really interesting is that every 3 years you need to recertify, and they raise the bar. So you just can't stand still. You need to keep thinking about how you can do businesses better. And as I like saying, there is no perfect company. Even, I mean, it was our experience as well as at EQ, is that there was many things we could do better. Even if, sustainability and sustainable investing was the heart of what we do, we needed to think maybe being more inclusively about all stakeholders. So, but the great news is that we've got so as I said, we work with financial advisors, and there's a growing number of them asking for feedback on B Corp. So for me, it's a fantastic news to hear that obviously financial planners are making a meaningful impact to people's life because of the life planning, aspect of their job. So and to me, it kind of naturally, they could become B Corp, and that's great to see. They want to. I think this journey will probably push them maybe to think more about sustainable investing, if not incorporating it already, and the whole community. So sorry, quite a long-winded answer. Sorry, I've done too many words, but
no, it's good. There is actually a few financial planning firms who are actually already B Corps as well, so that's really good to see. I like that. I mean, it's weird to think that people actually go back to their articles of association, because I mean, people don't even read theirs when they start companies, never mind going back to them every now and again. So it's cool you have to do that as well, which is really good. Okay, so coming near the end now. I mean, I've enjoyed this so much, but what we always like to do is we have to like to ask our guests for a book or some piece of content or something that has helped them in their careers so far. So Louisiana, we'll start with you just because Damien answered last. What have you got for us? What would you recommend?
Yeah, I was thinking about this just now, but I think I'll go with Drawdown by Paul Hawken. It was one of the first books I read after studying environmental and social disasters for a long time, and I was quite disillusioned with the world, and some people call it eco-anxiety, and some people call it, just not knowing what to do next because you know so much about the challenges we face, that this book hit me at a time where I was looking for answers, and I guess more practical answers and objective answers. So basically, it was written kind of a collaboration between loads of scientists to kind of come up with technologies or a list of technologies that can help us save the planet, basically. This is very climate change oriented, but there's loads of overlap as well between other social environmental problems. And I'm now smart enough to understand that technology can't save everything. And we do need to tackle the issues that got us here in the first place, like our consumption patterns, our focusing on growth. But it does give you really nice concrete technologies and actually some nice investment ideas about how to save the planet. So this is mine. I do recommend it. It's still very current. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Awesome. And Damien, what have you got for us?
Yeah, I should say Drawdown is a fantastic book. If you're really passionate about the subject, I guess I'll make a suggestion. We actually worked as a documentary as well as a book, and obviously I'm sure you can hear my very strong French accent. So actually, is initially a French book and a French movie, and it's called Demain in French and Tomorrow in English, and it was written a few years back, but I think it's still completely relevant. And what I really like is the positivity, that, you listen to that, there's, some very down to earth solutions that this book or this movie, a documentary is about. And you've got that really feel good factor that, it's not all doom and gloom, we're not all going to die. No, there are already people working on solutions, and we just need to start embracing them more broadly.
Brilliant. Perfect. Absolutely amazing. So thank you so much, guys. We're gonna end it there. But like I said at the start, it's been a privilege having you on the show today. It's great to hear from people who are doing fantastic things like you are. So really, really good work. But we do like to give the last word to our guests to say thank you for joining us on the podcast. So I guess we'll start with you, Louisiana. Can you tell our audience where they can find you, how to connect with you? And if you want to leave us with a bit of motivation/inspiration, that'll be good as well.
Thank you. That's so nice. Yeah, so Louisiana Salge, you can find us on our website at EQ Investors. Also connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on that. So I share kind of blogs and feedback and thoughts on sustainable investing in general. So do reach out to me on that front. A nice little quote. I mean, I think just coming up to Christmas, maybe this is what I'm going to go for. Think about maybe not buying all your Christmas presents on Prime on the very last minute, but maybe going for kind of a small company, or maybe something that is reused. I think it can make a difference. I think it goes back to everybody can make a big difference when all of their actions sum up. So I think that might be my little go-to, something practical you can do, and something that might be quite current right now. And start talking about sustainability, sustainable investment, because I think it's, even if you don't care about the planet, and I would be surprised if you're still listening, actually, but if you don't care about the planet, it is the best way to invest, because this is how you future-proof your investment. So I hope that helps too.
Brilliant. Thank you. And Damien, where can the audience find you, and how to connect with you? And you can leave us with a bit of inspiration and motivation as well.
People can also find me on LinkedIn if they want to know more about our proposition. It's eqinvestors.co.uk/advisors. So that's our website. You'll see more about our System Passive, as well as our impact investing proposition. And we would love actually to tell you more about it. And on my side, I think it's, really the idea is that systematic investing is no longer a niche. And, this is what most of your clients want to hear about. They might, I think what they need from financial advisors, a little bit of hand-holding, being reassured that that they can achieve their long-term goals, as well as investing sustainably and being part of the change. So I think there's no reason not to talk about it with your clients.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, guys. That's been amazing. Thank you very, very much for joining me. So that was Damien Lardoux and Louisiana Salge from EQ Investors on the Next Gen Planners podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can share it on social media. So we're on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And you can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, which is nextgenplanners.co.uk. And on there, you'll find more information about all of the different products we offer, and also our amazing community, which has over 500 financial service heroes in there now, and the conference, which is coming up in June next year. And if you like this podcast, you can, of course, leave us a review and subscribe after you've finished listening here as well. But again, thank you so much to Louisiana and to Damien for joining us on the show today. Thank you guys at home for listening as always, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.